Thanks very much, Peter. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep, great. And pleasure to follow Dennis as well. And I will definitely be checking out that report. That was a fantastic presentation. And even as Dennis was presenting, then I was tweaking mine because I think there's a few things here that I will be duplication otherwise. So I haven't got a slideshow for you today, guys, and I have just got 5 minutes of time. So what I'm going to do with those 5 minutes is I'm going to skip the need to act. I'm going to take it as given that people who have attended this meeting understand why this is a crisis and why we need to act urgently on this malaise. If anybody wants to question me or to talk about that at length, we can do so later in the session. But before I start talking about green jobs and a just transition, I'm going to start with a story. So I was raised as a child by a conservationist, and I was taught about the greenhouse effect in school. So I knew about the importance of the environment and the climate, and yet still I remained professionally inactive until even just a couple of years ago. And I approached my employer and I asked if I could get more involved. I work for Unite the Union, and I'm now pleased to lead on this agenda in the Southwest. But at the time of that conversation, there were no equivalents to my role in other regions of Unite. Now, I'm not suggesting it as a result of that conversation, more the direction of travel of the union movement in general, but I'm now pleased to see that there's an equivalent lead officer in each region. If we're going to tackle the developing crisis decisively, then there are 3 pillars in which we need to affect change: our personal lives, our work, and in wider society. Hopefully, everybody in this meeting already knows how to make changes in their personal lives. And whilst it can take a while, we can also make changes in society via democratic means, such as casting our vote at the ballot box. Of course, that can be quite slow, and we might also look to local initiatives and local community initiatives to make change socially. But making positive changes in the world of work is just as important. And for many people, that remains out of reach. It's a crucial area because workplaces often contribute significantly to our carbon footprint. Without tackling and greening employment, all of those other efforts in our social lives and our personal lives could be in vain. So let's be honest, Unite and the trade union movement have not always been at the forefront of this initiative. But I'd like to say we're now leading the charge. So here at Unite, we've assembled a national task force to tackle the climate crisis head on. That task force will ensuring that the new normal puts climate front and centre of concerns, alongside job creation, reskilling and support. I could talk a lot about different specific initiatives. I'll focus quickly on some green job manufacturing initiatives, which we've been lobbying for in Unite. 7 shovel-ready job creating programmes that could give the best, quickest and greenest return on direct government intervention and investment in the economy. I'm talking about housing retrofits. I'm talking about carbon capture, use and storage, talking about automotive and green shipping, gigafactories, aircraft replacement schemes, renewable energy from solar, wind and tidal, plus a large-scale broadband rollout. All of these initiatives are not only green jobs, but they're also green jobs that with the right political will pay for themselves in just the medium term. And I'll give you an example there, the housing retrofit. It's reckoned for every £1 million that is spent on the housing retrofit, 1.7 million will be generated back into our economy, including, crucially, as wages. Another example, without carbon capture, use and storage, experts believe the cost of the UK meeting its emissions targets jumps by 138%. And I'll post links to these manufacturing initiatives in the chat after this presentation. We also see automation changing the playing field. New roles require new skills. Somebody needs to build robots and AI. We require proper investment to upskill workers and address the country's acknowledged existing skills deficit. Make no bones about it, transforming industry in itself is a job that will require hundreds of thousands of workers' input. However, we don't all have the luxury of working on the cusp of innovative green industry. Retraining here is really key, and to me, a just transition means that no workers are left behind. We all know Cornwall's job mix. It includes farming, it includes tourism, a bit like my hometown of Glastonbury, a tourist town in a rural area. And my message here, and responding to those questions that Peter was asking in those initial slides as to what is a green job, is simply this: all jobs and industries can be greened. Now, that might mean something very different if you're working in a florist to if you're working in nuclear, an industry that, by the way, Unite believes, in the short term at least, is part of the solution, because we need to end our reliance on dirty fossil fuels now, and there is no scientific model that does that without involving nuclear in the short and medium term. But businesses from the smallest to the largest can all look to green different parts of their model. And one area I'd encourage everybody in this to look at is their supply chain. So in an age of consequences, we need to look locally to green our supply chains. And the environmental impact of business procurement needs to sit at least alongside cost in any decision-making process. So what are we doing practically at Unite, as well as forming task forces and passing motions? Well, we're also involved with the COP26 coalition, organising to build power for system change and climate justice. And hopefully you saw some of that off from the Global Day of Action that took place just a couple of weeks ago, Saturday the 6th of November, where mobilisations, demonstrations and marches were coordinated not just across the country, but also across the globe. Those looking to make changes at work do far worse than to organise and unionise their workplaces. Whether by workplace reps, health and safety reps, or whether you actually have dedicated green reps, this allows workers to have a say, ask questions and work in partnership with their businesses on the agenda. So we're doing that here in Unite in the Southwest, working with businesses and institutions. And we're now on the verge of signing more than one fairly historic environmental agreement that ensures workers' rights are heard as companies engage with this green agenda. We need workers to have a seat at the table on those sustainability boards, not just in an observer capacity, but in a full voting capacity to ensure that what we see is real radical change and not just greenwashing. So I'll leave it there. I'll end by saying, write to your MP, urge them to support the cross-party climate and ecological emergency bill, join the COP26 coalition, and like myself, don't be afraid to go and start that conversation with your employer. You never know where it might lead you. Thanks, guys.
Brilliant.